Hello and good evening, everyone. It is Raven here, Dana Metcalf, live from St. John's, Newfoundland, with a full expose about Antifa and cohorts. This subject is very close to my heart, as I have been. I've been basically the pinup girl for Antifa, No Space for Hate, and the Anti-Hate Network in Canada. And it's been a long time since. How should I say it? It's so frustrating since I've had the ability to even articulate how insane this shit really is, how corrupt our politics are, how much time and effort has been put into silencing Canadians' voices from coast to coast. So before we get into this really fascinating broadcast that we have and what really chaps my ass about Canada today, please give us a share and send this off to other platforms. Yeah, so let's get into it. So I think we should probably start off today by talking about what I've been through. In the last 5 years, when I discovered that, I wanted rights to my bodily autonomy, I was called a fascist Nazi grandma killer. Really. We staged advocacy to help keep our medical professionals working without having to have the vaccines on board. They made laws saying that basically we stormed the hospital when really we were like at least 500 meters away. Everything that you see on CBC and NTV is a lie. At least a solid 90% of it. So today we are going to talk about how things have escalated with me, and then we're going to get into the importance of telling the truth, the importance of holding people accountable, because that's what NLAP is. It's the Newfoundland Accountability Project. And it's imperative for me to inform you guys of the truth so that you have an understanding of what is really going on when you're surfing the interweb, because most people don't even understand the definition of half of these things. What is an anti-fascist? What is a fascist? But what I do know is that things are escalating across this province and across this country, so much so to the point where the police are protecting people that are inciting hatred. Now, here's the fascinating thing. There are things that have been said against me, in particular from an NLTA employee, Renee Cody. She incited hatred. She said that somebody should kill me and do away with me. This is something that should not be acceptable. If I was a member of color, or if I was a member of an ideological group, I promise you that there would be police at the end of my driveway waiting to take me off in handcuffs. But instead, they investigated and said that there was no incitement of hatred. Well, how does incitement of hatred work? Well, if you put something on the internet calling for somebody to kill somebody, you would think that that would be considered incitement of hatred. But what we have happening here in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador is the government is mobilizing the police, the unions, the school systems, and all of the different government bodies to either A, hide their corrupt activity, or B, do what they can to try to silence that person by threat or intimidation, whether it's through third parties like No Space for Hate or the anti-fascists, or through other means. And I believe that we have a slide somewhere in here with my friend in the background that shows that the member of the NLTA has actually threatened my life. How crazy is that? So before I get into it, I'm going to explain to you what Antifa is. Well, personally, I'm going to explain it to you what it really is, and then I'm going to explain to you that anti-fascist is actually the fascist people. Antifa in Canada operates as a decentralized, ideologically driven movement with a broader spectrum of left-wing extremism, focusing on countering propaganda, far-right ideologies through direct action. Right-winged extremists are basically anyone who disagrees with Antifa, okay? So because us parents don't agree with some of the curriculum, instead of saying, okay, well, the parents are valid and they have concerns, they will just label you a right-winged extremist. Antifa has been responsible for violent incidents such as clashes in Montreal in 2017 and 2018, Hamilton 2019, and Vancouver 2020. In the USA, Antifa is responsible for numerous acts of vandalism, violence, and even death. Canada's authorities monitor Antifa for its potential escalating in protests, but it is not designated to a terrorist entity, even though they meet the definition on all terms for terrorism. In Newfoundland and Labrador, numerous individuals allegedly affiliated with Antifa are said to be active within various organizations, operating under the banner of No Space for Hate to advance the left-wing extreme agenda, which is the ideologies, the digital currencies, the CBDCs, all of the things that, we might not want, but apparently if you don't want those things, that makes you a fascist. This movement is proponently gaining traction as a pop culture interest group characterized by intense hostility towards those who challenge its objectives. The alleged indoctrination promoted by these groups is claimed to aim at dismantling the traditional family structure and erode Canadian cultural values. You can see that happening every day. Critics assess that these activists are aligned with those who denounce Canada and desecrate the flag, symbolizing fundamental freedoms. The indoctrination of children is allegedly a key strategy to undermining societal foundations, with claims of implementing conversion therapy targeting minors. Additionally, it is alleged that these groups advocate for unequal rights, favoring all groups except Caucasian males, while seeking to dismantle Christianity and discredit its positive contributions. Local efforts have reportedly identified militant agitators and supporters within organizations such as the Fish Food and Allied Workers Union, the FFAW, Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association, the NLTA, St. John's City Council, the New Democratic Party, the Liberal Party, the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, certain law firms, unions, publicly funded associations. Individuals named as key figures of Antifa and No Space for Hate initiatives include Hassan High, Carla Karate, Ken Power, Ophelia Ravencroft, Dwan Street, Sarah Worthman, and Trevor Taylor. Hassan High is described as a long-standing Antifa organizer recently linked to the Liberal Party campaign opposing the UF tariffs association with former President Donald Trump. Carla Karate is aligned to be a veteran Antifa organizer who campaigned against James Topp, a decorated military veteran who walked across Canada to protest what he described as an authoritarian Liberal government policy, including mandatory vaccinations and suppression of peaceful demonstrators in Ottawa. So what we have, folks, is Newfoundland's government, Newfoundland's structure, anything that's tied to funding within the government of Newfoundland and Labrador in some facet or other has been infested and infiltrated by Antifa. I'm kind of curious as to where our slide is, so maybe my cohort here could take me backstage so he could tell me where my slides are. And we're just going to be back in a brief second. Hey everybody, okay, I'm back. So apparently you guys can see the slides, but I can't see the slides. Everybody meet Hassan Hai. Hey everybody, okay, I'm back. So apparently you guys can see this. Hassan Hai has been, he was originally, I was introduced to him quite some time ago when we were on the charitable organization network. He was working on Merbuys. I was working on a breast cancer calendar, and I should have known when he was like getting people to call in specifically for him that there was a little bit of underhanded business. As far as I know, his interaction with the Merbuys and stuff was to create a platform for him to be able to activate politically, because he did run for the Liberal government. Now, if you know anything about Hassan High, we've had many situations where he's mobilized um, the trans community, agitated the trans community to get them to show up. And the day that we had a little protest with the family and stuff, the day that, you know, led to my arrest, he had showed up earlier that day, positioned himself across the street, phoned the police. The police waved at us because we were being peaceful protesters. And when that didn't work, he marched in a bunch of transgender people that he had antagonized and convinced that we hated, because this is what Antifa does. And then they proceeded to, you know, be inappropriate, and parents panicked and we left and all of that good stuff. So he's actively currently right now, if you want to know the direct ties to him and the Liberal government, because he's been working for them the whole time. He was working with he's on the 25% tariff commission. So he most likely, almost confidently, would be what we would consider a fed up, a paid federal opposition, as well as being Antifa. So this is Hassan. He's a ringleader. I would like to say that he's probably one of the most dangerous people in this city for mobilizing those that show up to beat down parents and try to demoralize them in regards to any campaign that the parents put forward. A little bit more information about how that stuff works is if you look back on my profile, I can find it, probably drop it in a link. We have had an experience where Antifa and the unions were caught directly talking on a video that says that they were going to work together to demoralize parents from standing up. So they mobilize Antifa, anti-fascists, on the premises that anybody that does not like the government agenda, whether it's the SOG 123 or any of those types of agendas, that they will mobilize this militant group. They even have numbers and things for themselves, like 123, I'm Agent 507, blah, 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 blah. And they will go on the attack. Now, another interesting duck, I call her Itchy and Scratchy. And I say this because, you know, she's a very interesting, colorful character. Carla used to work for CBC, and as you can see on the screen here, CBC radar threatens peaceful protesters in Newfoundland. So while she was working with CBC, she was identifying, I believe it was, as Agent 13 for Antifa, and her primary objective was to demoralize parents and escalate things, and to try to prevent other parents from standing up for their children. Because I'm telling you, when these people come after you, it's pretty nasty stuff. So this Antifa person has been around for a long time. She likes to call people grifters. She likes to call people Nazis and fascists. I've directly seen posts where they've stalked me downtown and taken pictures and videos of my activity. She's now very active, of course, because we are ramping up to the Liberal versus Conservatives pretty much campaign, and she will continue to do so. She's also, if we were to make the perfect web for you, Sarah Marie Worthman, as you'll see when she pops up here, Sarah Marie Worthman is the originator for No Space for Hate. We've already connected the ties. If you look here, it says, I'm looking to get in touch with your friend Dana. Can you ask her to unblock me? I am the person behind No Space for Hate logo and protest. If she's going to have the police investigate anyone, it should be me. I'm the person she wants. Please leave the rest of my community alone. I'll take the brunt of it. Carla, Karen, Butler and Hassan High have only been really on the sidelines. So No Space for Hate works in direct conjunction with Newfoundland Antifa. And this is where it really gets interesting. There is a direct tie between No Space for Hate and Seamus O'Regan. I believe that we have a slide for that too. There you go. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. Right? That's the public props. Obviously, it's funded indirectly somewhere through the Liberal Party. My understanding is the funding for some of these organizations may not be now, but it was positioned to be part of the Heritage Fund of Canada. I know that they were the ones that sponsored the Anti-Hate Network, which is a federal body of people that are working together in this militant activity. And from what I've noticed is sometimes they will use local people and sometimes they will source people from other areas across Canada in tandem. So yes, everybody meet Sarah Worthman and Seamus O'Regan, team No Space for Hate, tied to Hassan High, as well as Karen Butler and the rest of the crew. Now, what's fascinating about these guys is they will agitate the population online. They will mobilize online, but what they will do is they will slowly disappear into the background. So it makes it very difficult for us to expose them in public. But I did expose Hassan High at the Liberal event that when Mark Carney was here. And his reaction was very telling. I got the whole hand in the face, and he wasn't very comfortable about being exposed. But the key to holding people accountable is exposing them as best you can. So, yeah, this is part one, by the way. We have a ton of evidence to support what we're saying. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the beginning of the expose. If you notice I'm looking off to the side, it's because I'm trying to track the screen because I can't see it on my side. Now, let's talk about unity, okay? We're like, unity, unity, unity. And many people have tried to unify our group, which is NLAP, with the Windmill Girls, Brenda Lee Kitchen, and her sister Sally, as well as Jennifer Whiteway. And the interesting thing is about Little Miss Brenda Lee Kitchen is, when I first met her, I was all in support of what was going on with the windmills. It wasn't my project, but I do have a lot of things to offer, like equipment and social media reach and those kinds of things. So as we were going along, she showed up in my driveway, and was like, I really want our project to be a success. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. And she reached out to me sometime, probably like 6 to 8 months later, and asked me for help. They were working on a protest. And while they were working on this protest, she's like, I really need it to be successful. You've got the biggest voice in Newfoundland. I want it to be successful. How can you help me? So, of course, I was like, well, this is your project. I will show up and I will cover it. You can have all my equipment. I can help you organize a convoy and I can help you do all these types of things. And less than a very short period later, I bounced back a message that said, a very formal, well-written, almost political message that said, we don't work with your kind. And then she went on to delete all of the different messages of her asking me for help. So that was flag number one in regards to Brenda Lee Kitchen's political alliance. Then I had a whistleblower who I will save his identity for another time because it may impact his positioning in the province, had told me that they were funded fully by the NDP and that it would appear to be that there was a reverse credit card transcription that happened that went directly back to the NDP party of Newfoundland and Labrador. So where there's smoke, there's fire. Why would they be doing that? Who knows? But it gets even more interesting with this Brenda Kitchen girl. She was supporting Hal Cormier, Now, even though Hal Cormier is a conservative, it doesn't mean that all the good people are on the Liberal side or all the good people are on or bad people are on either side. Hal Cormier is a progressive conservative candidate, but he's anti-windmill. Now, Brenda has a way of pushing everybody out that is not in line with the support of the LGBTQ NDP narrative. And, over time, it was Mike Coots, it was myself. The list of people that she's pushed out and refuses to work with is very indicative that when anybody gets close to what she's got going on, they typically like to get rid of them. So, yeah, that's Brenda Lee Kitchen. Brenda Lee Kitchen is NDP funded to the best of my knowledge as to what I can expose. Furthermore, let's talk about the difference between my arrest and Brenda Lee Kitchen's arrest. So my arrest was not lawful. And it wasn't lawful because I conducted myself in a professional manner. I contacted a law firm before I proceeded to the general area of Country Gardens. We didn't have any police presence attend. Nobody showed up and said that you shouldn't be here. Andrew Fury wasn't even home. I was arrested like 3 days later. Nobody showed up with handcuffs. They literally just called me and said, we have some paperwork for you. And they were super embarrassed about even having to charge me. When I've got my fingerprints done, it was the same. They were like, I can't believe that you're here. With Brenda Lee Kitchen and their crew, they utilized a misappropriation of Indigenous ceremony to try to gaslight the police to not comply with orders. Now, I'm all about advocacy. I'm all about standing up, but I'm about doing things legally and lawfully. When a police officer tells you to move, that you are trespassing, you move. Now, you might only move to drive around a building or move to another parking lot, and you may continue on with your advocacy. But resisting arrest is not something that should happen, nor should the abuse of our Indigenous ceremonies. So we received a message directly from an Indigenous organization here in Newfoundland, and I'm going to read you what that message says. It says, Brenda Lee Kitchen's misuse of sacred Indigenous drumming ceremony for personal gain or to avoid police intervention during illegal activities is considered culturally inappropriate and disrespectful. In Indigenous culture, drumming is profoundly spiritual practice symbolizing the heartbeat of Mother Earth and fostering connections with ancestors and the spirit world. The drum is a revered object and is used in ceremonies in form of prayer, healing, and celebration. Such misrepresentation, particularly by somebody who is not of Indigenous descent, has caused outrage among some members of Newfoundland's Aboriginal community who see it as a violation of their sacred traditions. So is Brenda Lee a distraction to prevent anybody from getting in there to do the real work with the windmills? I know that we've been blocked from the West Coast. I know that anybody else that has a voice has been blocked from supporting the windmills. So it would appear to be that Miss Brenda Kitchen might be very well, or it would appear to be a federal operative to distract from the real issues. So that is Miss Brenda Lee Kitchen. And there's this, okay? This is going to wrap your minds around it. Brenda Lee Kitchen is also Antifa. We have evidence to prove that she is in direct support of Hassan High. Are you making the connection here? Hassan High, No Space for Hate, Antifa, the Liberals, and the NDP. The same little circle of stuff that we're seeing happening provincially is exactly the same thing that we're seeing happen federally. When bills get passed, NDP and Liberals dogpile. They create this little display. They try to gaslight and they dogpile to prevent anything that's in the health and welfare of our country from actually passing. So Brenda, in this message, you can see directly is in support of Hassan High. Sally Kitchen, her sister as well, has also been noted as being a part of Antifa and in full support. So that's a large part of how this works in regards to information. However, I will put out a warning to everybody that is planning on attending their court case on May 6th. We'll roll something here now for you in a minute. In one of Brenda's recent videos in suggestion that people come in her support, she incites physical action, which would be an indication that she is looking for people to get physical. She stresses the word physical. Not at any point in time has advocacy or the right to peaceful protesting have anything to do with anything physical or incitement of any form of violence. So I would strongly deter anybody from thinking it's an opportunity to do anything illegal, threaten anybody, or show up in support of anything that might appear to be that way. And the other part is if Miss Brenda Lee Kitchen is tied to Antifa, then there may be another crew that also supports her back, which would most likely escalate things if things do not go in her favor. Yeah, folks, the rabbit hole is deep. There's lots of factual information. I'm wondering now if we can roll that video
time away from your family. But at some point, we need to show the government that we're prepared to take physical action. So if the government proceeds with this trial, again, October 20th, 21st, and 22nd, I'm asking if you're able to please schedule in these dates. We are going to be asking for people to be in the courtroom and outside the courtroom. We need to push this to the limits to get as much exposure as we possibly can to show the people how corrupt our government really and truly is.
Yeah, there's that, right? So what happens if the population gets antagonized and they incite some violence or they do something bad on direction of Brenda Kitchen? Then we're all considered right-wing extremists, activists. They could invoke the emergency order. There's lots of things that can happen. They could outlaw protesting. It's not good. It's not good what's happening here. But Antifa, no space for hate, and those guys know that this is just part one of our expose. We had so much information to provide for everybody today that we couldn't fit it all into one program. As you can see, Anti-Fascist Strategic Planning Plan and Action Committee, they are all over me all the time. But what they don't realize is that people have common sense. The men and women that are watching this that have children are finding out what's going on in their schools. People that are going to the hospitals are understanding what's going on with the hospitals. People who cannot take $5,000 out of their bank accounts because the banking babysitters now want to know what you're going to spend your money on are starting to wise up at the fact that we are in a very big, deep-seated agenda that is designed to change every aspect and facet of our life. And we have to understand that anybody that's on the government payroll, indirectly or otherwise, are motivated monetarily and willfully participating in the crimes of our government. I don't want to deter anybody from finding their voice. I don't want to deter anybody from legally and lawfully protesting. What I want people to do is to be smart and to have an understanding as to why things on the internet look the way they do. Why am I the pinup girl for anti-fascist and no space for hate? Because I tell the truth. Why do you think I was arrested? And why do you think that the charges were dropped? They tried to politically prosecute me for blowing the whistle on things, and they were unsuccessful. They were unsuccessful because in order for you to be able to be successfully convicted in court, they have to have evidence. But when you look on these different sites and all of these different things that you see where they make me out to be a bad guy or they make someone else out to be a bad guy, you have to realize that the seeds of corruption is planted in every facet of our government. So to those anti-fascists who are actually the fascists, it's my job now and NLAB's job to expose you. And if anything happens to me, they will know where to look. And the police will be accountable because the police are also failing to act. I've actually had interactions with police officers where they were like, okay, well, I'm going to investigate until somebody higher up decides to shut it down. There are rules for thee and not for me. As a woman who stands up and challenges the narrative of the government, I should be protected by law enforcement because that's their job. But what you don't realize is they're policy enforcers, but they're policies enforcers for the crown, not for the people. But here at NLAP, we are going to hold them accountable. You can find us if you have information about Antifa or about government corruption or about things that are going on within the unions. You can reach us at www.nlaccountability.ca. There is an email link there. We promise to keep your information private and discreet. And yeah, when you see those posts, you have to realize, and the information that's on the internet, you have to realize that they're being paid to do it. I can't imagine having a job being paid to be that big of an asshole. And I really can't imagine what it's going to be like to die with their souls. Because us as parents and as citizens, we have a voice. And at one point in time in the very near future, they will realize that we are the silent majority. Thank you so much for watching. I was very excited to do this broadcast with you today. By all means, tag the anti-fascists, the no space for haters, and the fascists that are anti-fascists. Feel free to share this amongst your friends and hold them accountable, because we have to leave something for our children. And if this continues and there is no accountability, then it's all over. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll get organized again for part 2. Sorry about the technical difficulties with the screen, but this is new. Love you lots.